It is 1 o'clock. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. The Titans' first injury report of the week came out yesterday as the team prepares for its first AFC South matchup of the season against the Indianapolis Colts. Here's what the injury report looked like. For the Titans, Jamal Adams, Treylon Burks, and Keandre Coburn all did not practice, with Treylon Burks being a personal reason. DeAndre Hopkins, Jeffrey Simmons, and L'Jarius Sneed all limited, with Sneed and Hopkins both being for rest purposes, while Cedric Gray, Ernest Jones, and Will Levis were all full participants yesterday. On the Colts side, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, Trey Sermon, Braden Smith, and Jonathan Taylor all did not practice yesterday, while Kenny Moore, Kwity Paye, and Anthony Richardson were limited participants. Around the NFL, Jets interim coach Jeff Ulbrich announced this morning that passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach Todd Downing will take over play calling duties. Downing last called plays for the Tennessee Titans in the 2022 season. Thursday Night Football tonight as the 49ers travel to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. You can catch that game right here on The Zone, Westwood One's coverage starting at 7 p.m. For our foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Happy Thursday to all who celebrate. It's Tennessee Football Thursday. We'll have Ryan Callahan in the next hour to talk about University of Tennessee versus Florida and some of the actual recruits, high-profile recruits that are going to be there at the game. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 if you want to talk about Tennessee Volunteers versus Florida Gators. We'll also talk about the handling of this staff, or the handling of Will Levis by this staff in the second hour, and talk some more about the Tennessee Titans situation going forward. And what should they have learned from what the Preds have done over these last 3 years? There's a few similarities, but it feels like they skipped a step that the Predators didn't skip. I'll get your thoughts on that, Blaine, in the second hour. But first, University of Tennessee is back at home. They're going to have a little bit of a home stretch here after losing to Arkansas on the road. They're going to see the Florida Gators. And Blaine, now this is from GoVols247.com, okay? So I did not fact check this myself about what I'm going to read, but I trust the guys over there.
Yeah.
The Tennessee Volunteers have just won 2 of the last 19 meetings with Florida.
Yeah, I saw that.
Is that right? I mean, that doesn't feel right.
And those 2 were at home.
I mean, that's insane. And they're 1-2 under Josh Heupel. So, you know, right now Florida is starting to get better as the season goes on. They've kind of switched to a 2-quarterback system as well that has sort of worked out. They're one of 2 teams in the entire nation with 2 600-yard passers. So Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning are the other one. It's a very interesting matchup on paper. You know, when you hear that, and I know that maybe players don't really think of these things or coaches think of these things, but like as fans, when I read that, I'm like, oh man, you can't sleep on Florida. And it really seems like the University of Tennessee Volunteers fan base has slept on Florida this entire lead up. And I just wonder, is battered Vols syndrome up? We asked Jackson the other day, and he's like, no, not really. You know, I'll ask you, Reed, where's your battered Vols syndrome level, or from 1 to 10?
Probably about a 7, but I also think we kill Florida.
So you think you kill Florida? So, I mean, we all thought that about Arkansas, too. So just, hey, listen. I'm not. I know I'm an Alabama fan, so I know that I can't say much. I definitely thought they were going to kill Vandy, so I'm with you guys.
Everybody said that, but come on now.
Yeah.
I thought Arkansas, if they were in the fourth quarter, I said it was going to be a battle. But I thought initially if they got off to a fast start, that was Tennessee versus Arkansas, then they could bury them. And that did not happen. They let them hang around, and that's exactly what happened. Now, I watched Florida, and I hadn't watched Florida. I watched them versus Mississippi State. And who else did they play?
They played Texas A&M as well.
A&M was the game I watched because I watched
those were not fun games to watch from the Florida fan perspective, I'm sure.
I got a little nervous because then I know I was reading up on the UCF game when they played them, and their defensive line played really well. I really like what I saw out of Mertz and Lagway, the quarterbacks. Two different style quarterbacks, but they accomplish both the same thing. Mertz actually scares me more as a quarterback, just how he picks his spots. He doesn't have the more talented arm, but you got to go look up his resume. He was Gatorade Player of the Year twice in Kansas, and he went to Wisconsin at first. And this guy plays with a level of confidence that he's the dude. And I like players who play like that because they're confident in their ability. Lagway comes in now, and what it looks like is they go Mertz 2 series, Lagway 1 series. Now, Lagway's got a little bit more wiggle to him, but he also has a stronger arm. And they run some nice play designs by Napier or whoever's running the offense that I like. Now, it's maybe because it was more pro-esque. But they looked a lot better than I expected. They got the DK kid at wide receiver number 17. I think he's a transfer from Wisconsin, too, as well. Really, really good player. I'm interested to see if Wilson plays. He's kind of the gadget guy. He hadn't played. He was injured. So if he plays, he is an automatic threat. Oh, that was the other game I watched. Went back and watched UT versus Florida last year in the swamp. And Wilson got hurt early in that game. He only played the first drive. He got targeted 5 times. Or he had the ball 5 times. I mean, they got him the ball. So this guy is legitimately quick as lightning. The only thing that I was worried is when I think of Florida, I think of defense, secondary guys, D-line guys.
They're linebackers, too.
And the linebacker, right. I just always think defense that, oh, man, they always going to have, an elite level defense. When I watched those games, I thought A&M hammered them in the trenches.
Yep.
They dominated them, and I was like, whoa, this is kind of interesting. Then I'd see a little bit of UCF, and it was the other way around. Well, the level of competition.
Yep.
So I'm interested to see if their defense can rise against Tennessee. And reason why I say that is because up front, I think, is the weak link to Tennessee's team.
Yeah.
It's the offensive line, as I've said that numerous times. So will they be, rise and play really well, or can they handle just 5 guys, stopping the run? I don't think so. So UT's offense should be able to win against Florida's defense. At least that's how it looks so far if you watch the games on a consistent level. Only game they looked really good was the UCF game. The other games, I was thoroughly disappointed with how they were getting manhandled in the trenches, which was, I think it was more shocking to me than anything else. So this is a game that it can make you nervous a little bit if Florida comes out and is very aggressive in the trenches on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
And I'm saying
that's where they're going to have the
this
matchup.
game a little bit.
Yeah.
If they kind of play a little keep away. And they have ability to do it on offense.
Well, I mean, what's interesting, so there's 2 sides of this.
They don't have ETN either, by the way.
But the trenches are where it's at, right? Yeah. So they normally run a 4-2-5 defense. Mm-hmm. Are they going to try and, on the fly this week, with the weather situation and practice and all that kind of stuff down in Florida too, are they going to try and do what Oklahoma and Arkansas did and run a 3-2-6? Like, are they going to try and make that adjustment? That's really tough to make that adjustment. But even with the 4-2-5 defense, Blaine, you're talking about 1,116 pounds among 3 players. Cam Jackson is 6'6", 342. Caleb Banks is 6'5", 325.
Which one is 21? He looks...
Desmond Watson is 21, 6'5", 449 pounds. And those are the guys that you have to run up the middle against and win in the trenches. And that's where I think that there is a big advantage. And on the other side, this... offensive line led by Jake Slaughter in the center, they've only allowed 5 sacks. That's the 16th fewest in the entire nation and the 2nd fewest in the SEC. So their trenches are stout. The problem is they don't have a Landon Jackson. They don't have even a James Pierce. They don't have a pass rusher.
Usually always got one. 2.
Yeah.
Usually have 2.
Yeah, and Florida right now does not have it. Now they have that defensive line. Or interior defense. They have the star. They have 2 players that play the star position in and out that are really good. Mm-hmm. They have some safeties that can come in and help. Their cornerbacks are average. But you're right. This isn't the Florida defense that we have come to know over the years. But I will say Tennessee has the edge on the entire defense.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about lining up in the trenches, you need a James Pierce first-round pick kind of game coming up this weekend. You need Tyree West to get that penetration as well on the other side. You need your defense to step up because right now you're talking about the 2-quarterback system, right? They are 15th in the nation in passer rating and 35th in the nation in passing offense. So this isn't. Listen, we've made fun of Florida in the first couple of years.
I like what I saw out of both quarterbacks.
Those first couple of weeks, this Florida offense got off to a rough start. But ever since they switched to this 2-quarterback system, things have really shifted in their favor. So this is not something that you really need to sniff your nose at if you're a University of Tennessee fan.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I'm not even a 2-quarterback system guy, even in the college game, but I get why they're doing it. Mertz is the veteran guy, and then you have the phenom type freshman guy getting his feet wet, a little bit here or there. Then coming next year, everything won't be so new. So I love the strategy, and actually I like what I saw. I think they're just now starting to creep into believing in Napier and their staff, and that could be really dangerous against Tennessee. If they're around in the third quarter again.
Yeah.
If they are around again in the third quarter, this team, I'm telling you, they are ascending. They are getting better.
Which is wild because you would have thought that the way things went down in Gainesville those first few weeks of the season, you're like, Billy Napier's on the hot seat.
Yeah.
Well, they've started turning things around. Look, say what you want about the University of Central Florida. KJ Jefferson is down there. Yeah. He's their quarterback. They had averaged 326 yards on the ground throughout the season until they came up against Florida 108.
Yeah,
that's a huge. Yeah, then that should be what happens. Mm-hmm. But sometimes what should happen doesn't always happen.
Right.
So that's say what you want. That's pretty good, I think. But you're right. 310 on the ground to Texas A&M, 240 on the ground against Mississippi State, allowed by the defense. You can't do that against Tennessee because you need to make sure you keep that run game in check because that's what these other teams have done when Arkansas kept the run game largely in check. Oklahoma did, but then they started breaking off runs towards the end of the game, and that's what put them in position to score and win that game.
Yeah, I think Sampson only had one big run against.
Yeah. He had 9 runs of 4 yards, which is not normally of Sampson against Arkansas. So when we come back, we'll talk more about this University of Tennessee Florida matchup with Ryan Callahan of GoVols247.com. He's covers recruiting, so we'll also talk a little bit about the recruits they got coming in. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, Tennessee, fall is here and is in full swing. And Cool Ray's here to make sure your home is ready for all the fun and the fall season. And we got some sizzling deals that will keep you comfortable and worry-free all season long. So ensure your family stays hydrated and healthy with free water quality testing because nothing beats a refreshing drink of pure water on a nice fall day. And Cool Ray also offers a $149 main sewer line camera inspection. And right now, they also offer 15% off whole home dehumidifiers as well as $500 off whole home generators. So let Cool Ray take care of your home so you can focus on making memories. So call us today at 615-709-8699. That's 709-8699 to take advantage of all these scorching hot deals. And that's Cool Ray, your trusted partner for a cool and comfortable Tennessee fall. Cool Ray, keeping Tennessee cool, plumbing right, and lights bright. But go check out CoolRay.com.
Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. And we're going to go straight to the phones, talk to Ryan Callahan, who covers Tennessee Volunteers for GoVols247.com. Ryan, glad to have you on the show, but what was going through your mind when the clock struck down to 0 and you realized that Tennessee had lost to Arkansas?
Man, obviously we saw it coming, we saw it happening, but it was still pretty surprising to see it, and that's coming from someone who had been saying for a while that I thought that was one of the more dangerous games on Tennessee's schedule. But just the way it happened, just kind of shocking to see Tennessee's offense struggle that much for most of that game. You know, they had the 2 scoring drives to start the second half, but otherwise just couldn't get anything going with any consistency. And Tennessee's defense even showed some regression in that game, and Arkansas was obviously able to move the ball and drive down the field with a backup quarterback in the game to win it there in the final minutes. So just the way it happened, maybe more so than just the fact that it happened, was shocking. But obviously, yeah, it was a pretty wild scene and one of those things that you never see coming in advance. But that's why we love college football, right? It's sometimes it gives and sometimes it takes away. And obviously for Tennessee fans, it was a tough night, and Arkansas fans were on the other end of it.
So if you were creating a blame pie chart or giving out percentages of blame for the offense not really clicking to the appropriate levels that you guys have come to expect from the University of Tennessee, where would you put the blame, the majority of the blame?
Well, I would probably start with the offensive line. Certainly in that game, it was a tough night for Tennessee's offensive line. There's no way around that. At the tackle positions in particular, they just didn't play well enough. Lance Hurd coming back from the injury where he had missed a couple games. A lot of Tennessee fans thought that would help the overall performance of the offensive line from what we had seen in the Oklahoma game, where they had some struggles there as well with some backups in. And it was the opposite. They were probably even worse with Hurd in there, had some penalties, gave up 4 sacks. So I think that's where the issues started. And then I'd say a big portion of the rest of it, I would probably assign to the quarterback position. You know, we tend to look at that a little too much sometimes, and maybe not enough at others because of good things that happen. But the quarterback position, I didn't think Tennessee played well enough there. And Nico Iamaleava is a young guy that's gonna probably have some much better moments going forward. But obviously to end the game the way he did, just sort of the head-scratching decision to run out of bounds there on the final play instead of throwing it up to the end zone. And even before that, though, just didn't seem like he was seeing the field well enough. And even some of those sacks, you wonder, was he holding the ball too long? I think he had shown a tendency to sort of hold on to the ball a bit too long in his first few games. So there's some things there that obviously he's in his 6th career start. But when you're talking about an offense not performing to the level you expect, I think that no question is a big part of it. But that offensive line, that's something they've certainly got to get cleaned up going into Saturday's game against Florida with all the veterans they have up front and the excitement about the addition of Lance Hurd. That's not the type of product they expected to see from that offensive line this year.
We're on the phone with Ryan Callahan of GoVols247.com.
Well, Ryan, what does the health of the team look like in particular, especially the wide receivers?
Yeah, honestly, better than we would have thought based on the initial availability report that was released last night. We're all still adjusting to this new world where we actually get, sort of standardized injury reports starting on Wednesday night leading up to a game. So one of the things we don't know is, and Josh Heupel was not one of the more forthcoming coaches when it came to revealing injury details before the addition of these injury reports. We don't know if there's any opportunity for gamesmanship on this. So we can't say for sure that these guys are all going to be back. But based on the initial report last night, a lot of questionables and probables, and nobody that we've already seen ruled as out. And that's a pretty positive report overall. So Squirrel White, the initial prognosis sounds pretty good. Brew McCoy sounds pretty good. Now that lines up with what we'd heard on Brew McCoy, maybe a little more optimistic than we expected on Squirrel White. He was listed as probable last night. And on the flip side, Dante Thornton Jr., who was able to come back in and finish the game and had that 42-yard catch on the final drive, he's listed as questionable initially last night. So that's still banged up there. Definitely going to have some question marks going into Saturday. But it at least looked like, based on that initial report, that we might see at least a couple of those guys out there, and potentially all three, based on that initial report. So we'll see how that progresses as the week goes along. But there's at least a good chance Tennessee will have a couple of those guys back, and that's potentially a big deal because they've got some depth at that position. But take a couple of those guys out, and it's a different looking receiving core with potentially having to count on a talented but inexperienced freshman like Mike Matthews or Chaz Nimrod. Someone like that would have to step forward and play more, and that certainly would be a different looking receiver group without a Brew McCoy or a Squirrel White or certainly a Dante Thornton.
Would you think head coach Hyper would move some guys around? Not that those guys who are the starters, if they are not healthy enough to go or on playing a limited amount of time. You just mentioned a couple of them, but would he try to put his best ones if only one is only getting to play, or will this force him to finally rotate the wide receivers, which I'm a big advocate for, especially in this offense, especially when they're not doing the hurry up?
Yeah, so they've rotated some. Even last week we saw Mike Matthews play 14 snaps. Now some of that happened, I think, as guys were getting banged up. But regardless, right. they have rotated some. But yeah, I think in that situation, it actually might have the opposite effect. It might sort of scale back the rotation because you might only have 4 guys or so that you really trust to put in a game like that. So we'll have to see if that's how it plays out and if it has that type of effect. But if you were to play without Squirrel White, for instance, Chaz Nimrod would probably be the natural replacement in the slot. If Dante Thornton's out, that's maybe where Mike Matthews could have more opportunities. So it'll just depend on who is out and how many of those guys were out. But yeah, that's a position where, again, they've had some depth. They've rotated a little bit, but I think for the most part they've kind of stuck with the guys they know they can count on. And certainly in a road game like that, it's understandable to a degree. But for me personally, I couldn't help but think on the last play of that game, as they were dealing with some of those injuries. You had Chaz Nimrod on the field. You had Holden Stays, the tight end, on the field. No Ethan Davis, a talented young tight end who would be, I think, great in kind of a jump ball, 50-50 ball type situation to end the game. No Mike Matthews out there either. So I know there are some fans sort of clamoring to see some of that young talent out there on the field more. Maybe that forces Tennessee's hand and gets them into the thought process of, hey, we've got to play Mike Matthews more, former 5-star prospect. But so far we haven't seen that a lot. He's played a little bit, but they're still kind of getting his feet wet and getting him up to speed so far.
Do you think defensive now caught up to Heupel's offense? And I say that they've gotten in matchups where they run these 3-3s, 5 or whatever it is. But a lot of 7-on-7 type defenses is really what they use because you're throwing the ball all the time. And they are forcing Tennessee to run the football and say, hey, we're better off having a shot of winning this game if we force them to run, regardless of what the running back does, 150 yards, the score will be closer. Now, that not mean all the teams are going to play are going to convert their defenses to those style of defenses, but it's going to make other teams take pause of what's really happening in these games. And it seems like, Tennessee looks flat. So what do you think is Tennessee's adjustments if teams start doing this across the SEC?
Yeah, so that's obviously been talked about a lot this week coming off that game. And it's certainly worth noting that some other teams have made a habit of sort of throwing 3-man fronts at Tennessee's defense more often. Now, Arkansas, I don't know the exact number, but about 40% of the time last week, they were in even fronts. They were in 4-man fronts. So it wasn't all 3-man fronts last week, but that is something we've seen opposing defenses have some success against Tennessee with. I think, though, it still, at the end of the day, comes back to personnel. The key to being able to run a 3-man front against Tennessee's system is you've got to be able to you kind of touched on it. You've got to be able to stop the run with a 5 or 6-man box and not have to devote more guys to stopping the run. If you can do that against Tennessee, that can work, regardless of whether it's a 3 or 4-man front. That's where Georgia has had success in defending Tennessee in the past couple of years. You've got to be able to stop the run with the fairly light box. So if you can do that, it doesn't necessarily matter what the formation is. And then the other thing is, I think Tennessee had some receivers open last week, and that's why I kind of point to the quarterback position a little bit more as being the issue. I think Nico Iamaleava's got to see the field better, and he's a young quarterback. You expect some of that, right? But I think he had some opportunities to make some things happen in the passing game that were there and they just weren't on the same page. Some of that could come down to the option routes Tennessee uses in its offense. That's obviously used quite a bit these days, but you got to be on the same page with your receivers, and then you've got to see them there. And then you've got clips like the one that got out from the next to last play of the game, where if Nico scans the whole field and shows a little more patience, maybe he kind of seemed to be staring down the left side of the field, looks to the flat. He's got Dylan Sampson to his right, kind of coming wide open, and had maybe 15 yards to run, and you still had a timeout at that point where you could have made something happen even if he had been tackled inside the 10. So some things like that where he's got to see the field better, and not just that one, but other ones too, where I think there were receivers open. So the key is the personnel to me. You how you use them, how you align them. That can change week to week, but if Tennessee's winning matchups, it won't matter as much how teams defend them. And I think it's up to them to play better at the line of scrimmage and to make better decisions in the passing game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're on with Ryan Callahan with that Go Vols 247.
Ryan, two big recruits that you guys have brought up that are attending the game this weekend, Amari Latimer, running back out of Atlanta, and hopefully I'm pronouncing his first name right, Monshon Sells, wide receiver out of Indianapolis. Can you talk about those two recruits and what they may bring to the table for the Tennessee offense?
Yeah, well, that's kind of touching on what Tennessee's going to have in town this weekend, and that's a lot of talent in the 2026 and 2027 classes. Some top guys, especially in the 2026 class. But Amari Latimer is one of their top running back targets early on in that 26 class. And you're still evaluating guys in that class at this point. You're talking high school juniors, so obviously the season's still ongoing for those guys. But so far, Amari Latimer is one of the guys they've recruited the hardest at that position, and up from the Atlanta area, and that'll be a big chance for Tennessee to get him on campus this weekend to see his first game at Neyland Stadium, and some other guys like that you mentioned, the receiver from Indiana. He's that's obviously very early for that class in the 2027 class, but another highly ranked guy that Tennessee's involved with so far, and yeah, they'll have dozens of guys in town this weekend, including some in-state players. Joel Wyatt, 4-star wide receiver from the Webb School in Bell Buckle, and some other guys like that in state. So it's certainly a big recruiting weekend for Tennessee, and with Checker Neyland fans, creating the checkerboard pattern in the stands, and a night game for a big rivalry game. Should be a fun atmosphere for them to showcase. So that's the flip side of this. Obviously, on the big picture, Tennessee needs a win. That's the most important thing for this weekend. But no doubt, win or lose, they should have a great environment to showcase, and it's a big recruiting weekend. Only the second biggest recruiting weekend of the year, though, behind next weekend, when Tennessee will have tons of top players in town for the Alabama game. That's obviously going to be the biggest recruiting weekend of the year for the Vols.
With Florida, they have for the last few games, they've had the two quarterback system with DJ Lagway and Mertz, and they've been 15th in passer rating, 35th in passing offense in the nation. It's kind of worked out well for them after the rough start to the year. What about the Tennessee defense in preparing for these two different quarterbacks? Yeah,
Tennessee's coaches talking about it so far this week. They've sort of downplayed the differences a little bit because Graham Mertz still can run a little bit. He's not the most mobile guy, but he does have the ability to make some plays with his legs. And you say that not to diminish one guy over the other, but let's face it, Graham Mertz had a great game against Tennessee last year in Gainesville. That was maybe one of the surprises for a lot of Tennessee fans. They didn't think much of Graham Mertz, I think, going into that game. And he was really efficient, and that's the big thing. He's got a really high completion percentage so far this year. I believe upper 70s in completion percentage for the season. So that's the kind of thing that worries you if you're a Tennessee fan. I think there were a lot of people looking at this game and thinking, Tennessee's about a 20-point favorite in some look-ahead lines. Florida's not that good this year. Billy Napier's going to get fired, a matter of when, not if. I just don't see Tennessee losing that game. And now, after seeing Tennessee's offense do what it did against Arkansas, I think there are a lot more people looking at this matchup really closely and worrying about these things. Can a freshman quarterback like DJ Lagway come off the bench and cause some problems? Can Graham Mertz do what he did to Tennessee last year? And maybe most importantly, if Tennessee's offense can't get a lot more things going than it did last week, can they outscore Florida in a fairly, what might be a fairly competitive game? So this is a much more nerve-wracking setup for Tennessee fans, I think, going into this one than they ever expected it to be. And some people maybe never look past Florida to begin with, but Florida's quarterbacks are definitely one of the reasons you think they're capable of pulling the upset in this one. So to me, it starts with Tennessee's offense getting it back on track, but that defense has to play a little bit better than they did last week too. They gave up some plays. Arkansas threw for almost 300 yards, and yeah, both those quarterbacks I think are good at what they do. And Lagway's a talented young guy coming off the bench. So if they play it the way they're capable of, they could cause Tennessee some problems for sure.
When you're looking at this interior, the defensive line for Florida, it's got 1,116 pounds, 342 pounds for Cam Jackson, 325 for Caleb Banks, and 449 for Desmond Watson. And they don't have a Landon Jackson, obviously, but these three guys are big enough, powerful enough to cause some problems for a Tennessee offensive line that is really needing to rebound for this offense to move, obviously. What do you think about that matchup in the trenches between Florida's DL and the Tennessee OL?
Yeah, I think that one's a little bit concerning from Tennessee's standpoint, just in the sense that they've not always been just the road grading type of offensive line. Even when they're really good in the run game, it doesn't always tend to be a bunch of pancakes and everything all over the field. They do a good job of executing what they do and opening holes when they're at their best. And when you've got bigger guys like that in the middle, it's a lot harder to move those guys around, obviously, and get them where you need them to be to open up some holes. So I think they're still going to be able to run the ball a little bit, at least on Florida, but you do wonder about that because we saw Tennessee's offense have some trouble, again, in Gainesville last year. And that's maybe the one reassuring thing for Tennessee about this. The two wins they have against Florida in the past 19 years have both been at Neyland Stadium. They've both been since 2016. They tend to play better against them in Knoxville, but some of the same things Florida had going for itself in that game last year, they still sort of have some of those things on this roster, including the quarterbacks and some of the big guys at the line of scrimmage. So that's at least a little bit of a concern, and Florida did a better job against the run last week than they had done previously. So I think you have to go into this game assuming those guys are going to play pretty well, and Tennessee's offensive line needs to step it up a level. Obviously, the tackle position was the big concern coming out of last week, but even in the interior spots, they're going to have to be on top of their game because there's going to be a lot more demanded of them, I think, like you said, with those big defensive tackles in there that can cause some problems.
Well, before we let you go, Ryan, one more question. That is this a must-win? And let's look at it big picture from the media perspective. They still have Alabama, Georgia. They split with them. This then becomes a must-win. Do you view it that way?
I think it's a must-win for Tennessee, no question. I think it was even if they hadn't lost to Arkansas because so many things become harder if you lose this game. You're looking at it now realistically where Tennessee's going to have to beat Alabama or Georgia probably to make the college football playoff now as a result of what happened last week at Arkansas. So that they've basically lost all margin for error. They lose this game, you can forget the college football playoff, barring some miraculous turnaround where they beat both Alabama at home and Georgia on the road. So yeah, it's a must win, and you want this year to at the very least keep Tennessee in that discussion at the top of the SEC. Make them a team that's next year positioned to make the college football playoff, even if they don't this year. Losing to Arkansas and Florida back-to-back would open up a lot more questions about just sort of where this program is and are they far enough along like we thought they would be, the middle of year 4 under Josh Heupel. That's not a discussion you want to be having. So I think this is a must-win for a lot of reasons, but first and foremost because they want to stay in that college football playoff race.
Thanks for joining us, Ryan. That's Ryan Callahan of GoVols247.com talking about Florida Hate Week. University of Tennessee is hosting the Florida Gators. We'll talk more about that matchup and wrap that up in our next segment. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey guys, this is Blaine for Edge Peptide Therapy. And listen, I've been hearing about peptides and peptide therapy now for a few months and was curious. So I finally went to Edge Peptide Therapy to find out more. And they did a full blood panel that showed where my body had some small deficiencies. And then they came up with a tailor-made plan to address those areas with peptides. And since I've started with my peptide therapy, I've noticed that I am full of energy, focus, and as well as recovering from some of my old injuries, new injuries, post-career in the NFL, let alone arthritis, elbow, inflammation, from old and new sports injuries. So recovery peptides have helped with all of this. So if you're looking for an alternative to surgery, consider talking to Edge first. And this month, Edge is offering $150 off your first peptide package for new clients. So why not get started now? Go to edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com. Or you can just give them a call at 615-724-1878. That's 724-1878.
You just had to play Post Malone. Can you get off Buck's playlist? We got our own playlist, right? Let's get off Buck's playlist, Reed.
I'm not trying to circulate songs.
I'll get you some more songs then for the playlist so we can get out of Buck's crappy playlist.
Of all the chippy conversations that we have had, you playing that was the first time I saw his face go like, what the Sam? You know what you're doing? Hey, man, where'd you get that Masters? That thing looks fresh. That Masters golf tournament hoodie you have on, man. That looks pretty clean and like it's brand new.
Yeah, I don't wear it a lot. I go every year.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh,
can I
man.
get an invite, man? I'll
Maybe.
pay for my information.
You stay friends with me long enough, we'll see what happens.
Oh, man.
All right,
I've
you
been
can play all the
invited a
Post
couple
Malone.
times.
Hey, listen, you can play all the Post Malones you want if you take me to the Masters. I'll let you play.
We'll be
Yeah.
watch this. We'll be a package deal.
There you go. We can broadcast all from there, right? I mean, we got the technology to do it in today's day and age. Blaine, you asked Ryan Callahan on the last segment if this was a must-win game. And obviously for playoff implications, obviously for playoff implications, definitely 100% is. If you lose to unranked Arkansas, unranked Florida, I think you're out of the playoffs.
Oh, no, they may become ranked.
You're going to have to sweep Georgia and Alabama to make it in there at that point.
That could happen.
So, yeah, it is a must-win. This is also, for me, like a must-see Nico elevate this offense. Like, we're talking Florida is 13th in the SEC in pass defense, 12th in the SEC in yards per attempt allowed, 14th in the SEC in passer rating. They only have 2 interceptions, and they've given up 20 plus yards explosive plays. So this should be like a Nico takeover game. Like, let's see it. You're at home. It's prime time. You got the checkered, pattern in the stands. You got some recruits there. I want to see a Nico takeover game that's not against Kent State and University of Tennessee, Chattanooga.
And Ball State, right?
Yeah.
Well, I actually want to see that, but maybe not to the level that you're talking about, because the level you're talking about, we haven't seen. And it's a gradual process when you're an athlete. You just don't all of a sudden. So we need to start seeing glimpses of it. We still haven't even seen glimpses of it, of him taking over a game. Now, that's not to say it can't happen, but to me, the expectation to believe that now he's going to play like a superstar to help them win this game, I think that's asking a little too much. I want to see progressive consistency and performance game in and seeing him keep tearing up. And then it hits. Well, he didn't tear up last week, so I don't know if then this team here, Florida is I don't know what Florida team you're going to get here. Because there's parts of some of their games, I go, whoa, this is the Florida old. And there's other parts of it, I go, so I don't know. But I do want to see parts of him, like, make those critical throws. And I think when you say takeover, we're talking about he's going to be running and just making plays all over the place. Well, we kind of really haven't really seen that. And I don't know if it's the structure of the offense or the teams they're playing or the O-line or if it's the play calling or is it the receivers. It's really hard to see all that watching it on TV. So I feel like he has the proper demeanor. We know he has the tools. So now I just want to see consistency first. And to me, consistency means then winning games. That's what I wanted to ask. Ryan, he also said the ball slipped out of his hand a little bit when he was going to throw on the last play. I went and rewind that ball and didn't move an inch. I didn't see it. At least I couldn't see it on my TV, and I got the curved big screen TV, man. So I don't know, man. But so let's not make excuses for, hey, man, I just didn't let it fly. I was, so I lost track of time or where I was on the field or whatever it may be. You want to start seeing him be held accountable, and then we'll see who he really is, because then that puts all the pressure on you and not anyone else. Line, receivers, play calling. I thought they all did him a disservice, but at the same point, the quarterback's supposed to be the caveat to take him everywhere. Is he ready to do that yet, though?
And, well, what's funny is that fans and a lot of people really expected him to be that guy straight away. And maybe that's the wrong expectations.
It's based off his pay.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, you got to kind of talk about it now. Like these guys are getting paid millions of dollars, and he's one of these guys getting paid millions of dollars, and you kind of expect a certain level of play right out of the gate. He was a very hyped quarterback prospect. No doubt. So I'm just saying that maybe everybody probably should have expected a little bit slower start than what they have, but right now you got to see, like you said, going up levels. We haven't really seen him going up levels. Let's go to, and I hesitate to do this because of the name on the screen, but let's go to Gator Mike in Nashville, who wants to talk about the Tennessee Volunteers. Gator Mike, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Dang, Ryan, I'm getting ganged up by you and Reed. Come on, Blaine, let's ride. Let's ride, Blaine.
Hey, Percy Harvin ain't out there, man.
Yeah. Man, I mean, between Jackson and Reef and all these producers, UT guys, man, it's hard to get a break on here, But anyways, Ryan, I like what you said. It's like this Tennessee-Florida game, and Reed knows going back with the battered ball syndrome and stuff, you just never know what you're going to get. It's like, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, 2021, coming down to the Swamp, Tennessee was highly favored or whatever, and Florida won that game. It just depends. Even like the game that Tennessee finally won and got that in the Butch Jones era, Florida was up 21-3 at halftime. I didn't expect to win that game at all. But then Tennessee rolled off like 35 unanswered points in the second half. But, and not to play pie in the sky, but like Blaine said, that week off, I think, did us some good. The defense looked like the Florida defense of old that we've been missing. They finally got some turnovers. We finally had 5 sacks in a game. We'd only had like 2 on the season. We weren't getting the pass rush, getting Eugene Wilson and I had Maisel back from injury will definitely help the receiver core. And then I think that Graham Mertz leadership will definitely help. The one thing I do worry about is, like you said, if Nico can get in a rhythm, our pass defense is what's kind of struggled. Our run defense, we finally clamped down on Central Florida. You know, they were like a top 5 team coming in the country in rushing, and we only gave up 108 yards to them. So if Florida can maintain drives, keep Tennessee's offense off the field, I expect a good game. And, you know, the 2 games we've lost now don't look too bad, right? Texas A&M, Miami, both 2 undefeated teams in the top 15 in the country. So, you know, I definitely feel better about this game since Tennessee, Arkansas, but, you know, Knoxville's always a tough place to play. It's going to be a night game. Florida's just got to maintain their focus. And, you know, if we jump on top, does that creep into Vols' heads again? Like, oh, no, here we go against Florida. So I'm looking forward to it, but always glad to talk to y'all and glad to talk to you for my first time, Ryan. Have a good day.
All right, appreciate it. Yeah, Notre Dame beat A&M. So,
two things. Texas A&M is not undefeated. My name is Zach, not Ryan. So, but it was great talking to you, Gator Mike. But when we come back, we'll talk. We'll close out our talk about the University of Tennessee Florida game, give our final predictions, our feels for the game, and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll transition into the Will Levis and how the Titans are handling their quote unquote quarterback of the future. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, folks, I've been talking about Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance for years because they are the leading experts in sports medicine and performance and the team physician for the NFL, college, and high school athletics across Tennessee. And TOA provides sports medicine coverage to more high school and college sports teams than any orthopedic group in the state of Tennessee. And they have 29 locations throughout the state and over 100 physicians throughout Middle and East Tennessee to take care of all your musculoskeletal needs. And TOA also has 11 urgent care locations with walk-in availability 7 days a week. They offer direct access to sports medicine and performance, physical therapy, and nutrition. Personalized rehabilitation plans to enhance mobility, reduce pain, and improve overall physical function for patients recovering from injuries or surgeries. And TOA also offers sports performance training, a specialized program designed to enhance athletic performance and provide tailored training solutions for athletes at all levels. And please check out their services at TOA.com. Yes, that's TOA.com.
I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
It's Blaine and Zach, and it's hour number 2 here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Stores. 615-737-1045 if you want to talk some Tennessee Titans, Tennessee Volunteers. We're closing out our talk here on University of Tennessee, Florida for the day. And Blaine, we were talking about generating pressure, this Florida defense having no edge rusher. They have a 58.9% blitz rate, and 72% of their pressures come from the blitz. So they're not generating hardly any kind of pressure, just rushing for. So they're going to have to blitz. Now, we saw Arkansas do some blitzing last week and everything, and it turned out to be pretty effective against Nico. You know, with a relatively young signal caller like Nico, going up against and seeing these different formations and stuff. Like we said, they're doing a 4-2-5. Maybe they try a 3-2-6 defense, 3 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 6 defensive backs. Is this just him not being that, not that he can't, but that he is going through his growing pains of reading stuff post-snap, you think?
I'm sure it's some parts of that. And not seeing the all 22 and everything else. I really just think it's how teams are approaching. They just come against some teams that play this 3-3-6 or 4-2-5 that can cause some issues with this style of offense. And I think they're going through growing pains, the coaching staff as well as him, and seeing how that all works. You talked about, they blitzed too, but they didn't know where it was coming from. Wasn't as clear day. Well, when you're in the 4-3, it's pretty clear who's coming and who's not. So I think you can cause confusion there with other things, but you have to have these certain type of players. Now, in college, the difference between college and pro is you change defenses weekly. You come in and you go with your base, but there's sometimes where you're doing something totally you didn't do any at all. Well, in college, that's a lot harder to do. So that's why I'm saying when they go to the next week, I saw Missouri do this a couple years ago. I think you remember this, Reed. I think Missouri changed their defense 1 week to the next, and they look horrific. And it's because they tried to do exactly that. Gotcha. And their players didn't buy in. And it's harder to do when you got class and everything else. So I just think teams are going to stick with what they know and what's best, and I think that's what Florida's going to do. They're going to stick to their 4-3 and run their scheme and say, you get mano a mano. And I think that's going to benefit Tennessee, and hopefully now we'll get to see, Nico make some plays down the field, and the receivers are helping.
Winning about those 1v1s, right? Those one-on-one matchups.
One-on-one. It'll be a lot more clearer and won't be cloudy on it feeling like they got 8 defensive backs back there. You don't know where to go with the ball, because that's how it looked, in the Oklahoma as well as the last game versus Arkansas. Man, they did a great job come up with those schemes that most teams don't have that. And sometimes those teams who are undermanned usually are the ones that do it. So Florida's going to think that we got dudes and we can cover it. So I think it'll be a little bit different.
Let's do final predictions real quick. I think I'm going to go Tennessee. I think they're going to win by 3 scores. Well, that's where I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go Tennessee by 3 scores. Now, it could be a touchdown and 2 field goals. It could be 3 field goals, but no, I do think that they'll at least win by 17 points.
How much are they favored by?
I think it was 15.5 last time I checked. It may have moved down to 13.5. I'm not sure, but that's where I'm at right there. I think Tennessee wins at home. It'll be a convincing win, and hopefully not the last convincing win of the weekend for a Tennessee football team. Blaine, what's your prediction?
I'm gonna go 14. I think it's gonna be more of a 31-17 type score. Yeah.
What about you, Reed, back there?
Yeah, I like the 3 scores.
Yeah, let's roll. We like the 3 scores. I'm betting the over. This is I've been betting the under. I don't know what the over is, but I just know I'm going to bet the over. Oh, because I've bet the under these last 2 games and they've been fine. That means that it's time to pivot and bet the over in the next University of Tennessee game.
I'd love to hear from the fans though on how confident they are about this game in a rivalry game. And let's say this: you never know what to expect in a rivalry game, because it means so much, not only for the fan bases and the alma maters and everybody else, but also to the guys on the field. And sometimes they go out of character. They try too hard, or they, make mistakes because they're pressing to make some things happen that aren't there.
Right.
So you just don't know. I think it always usually favors the home team, but we shall see.
We shall see. We're going to transition real quick to the Tennessee Titans. But before I do that, I got a giveaway for you.
Oh.
It's Titans Ticket Thursday, where 104.5 The Zone gives you a chance to win Tennessee Titans tickets on Thursdays before home games. Be caller number 5 now to win tickets to see the Titans host the Colts this Sunday at Nissan Stadium for their 3rd home game of the 2024 season, plus 2 tickets to the Titans VIP tailgate with Ron Slay and DJ C-Wiz, thanks to Bullseye Event Group. Plus 2 tickets to the Titans VIP tailgate. Well, that's on here twice. So guess what? They wanted me to read it twice. Plus 2 tickets to the Titans VIP tailgate with Ron Slay and DJ C-Wiz, thanks to the Bullseye Event Group. Got so nice, you have to say it twice, Blaine. So be caller number 5 right now, 615-737-1045. So as we transition to the Tennessee Titans, obviously talking about the Titans-Colts game and all that kind of stuff, I have to ask, it seems like Will Levis is going to play. We don't know how his arm stood up to the rigors of a full practice. So he was listed on the injury report as a full participant at practice. After earlier, Ryan Callahan said, yeah, he's probably just going to be limited. So obviously they let him go full throughout the practice. From all reports, Anthony Richardson is the likely starter there, unless he suffers some setback throughout the week. But right now, he is trending to be the starter on Sunday. And I said, as soon as we went off the air yesterday, I said, you know what, Blaine? I think that if Anthony Richardson plays, I want to see Will Levis play. Mm-hmm. If Joe Flacco plays, I want to see Mason Rudolph play. Because I want to see, I think that with Anthony Richardson, you have a little bit more leeway for Will Levis to make some mistakes and still win the game. But with Joe Flacco, they'll capitalize on those mistakes across the way. So you thought that was a really good thought process. But what you've had now 24 hours to think about it. What do you think?
First and foremost, this shows you what's going on in the National Football League at quarterback. Joe Flacco is the highest rated passer in the National Football League. And we're up here talking about what we're considering doing when the obvious answer is right in front of our face, right? So not only are the Titans doing somewhat similar, we don't have a bigger sample size like they do with the Colts, but it's going around the league where some of these veteran quarterbacks are performing a lot better than the, potential franchise younger quarterbacks who have a lot of upside. Until they meet the upside, then it made me think, man, and I'm a big proponent not of this, but do you do somewhat of rotating quarterbacks in the National Football League?
Who was the last? I know a few teams have done it.
This Don Strock and
no, it wasn't even that old. I cannot remember the last time.
80s, late 80s.
Someone may remember. Now, there's someone maybe in the last 10 years that has tried the rotating quarterback thing. And I cannot remember who it was. Maybe in the Jets or something back in maybe in like a Mike White, maybe just recently.
With Zach Wilson?
But someone was rotating recently. And
reason why I say that, here's what I'm going to follow up to give it this little caveat. It's because the immediate veteran quarterback can get you to where you can go, but the backup rising quarterback, young quarterback, needs to not only see it from the sidelines, which you can learn a lot, but at the quarterback position, eventually you got to go in there and do it and let someone show you how to actually do it. Now, there's a lot riding on all these, high pick guys and, and they got to put them out there sooner than later. But you can get the veteran quarterback at a minimal rate, and you still get the economics of it, the promising up and comer. So just so he can see what we're looking for, you don't have to be the hero, just be the point guard. And so with that being said, as much as I'm against all that whole premise, and I'm not saying you do that for an entire season, but maybe you do it for 2 or 3 games to make sure you get accomplished what he can see and how we want it done. Granted, he can see it on the sideline, but I don't know. I'm not saying that's what the Titans should do, but I think eventually that's going to start happening because the pressure is going to come from why the heck did you play Quentin Richardson when he showed you he's not better than Joe Flacco?
I know. I don't know if rotating them in and out is good for building. Like I think Joe Flacco doesn't need a rhythm. You get what I'm saying?
Right, he doesn't.
But Anthony Richardson does. I feel like Will Levis does. I don't know
if that's going to work.
It's very interesting. So I was looking at the numbers today.
It's hard,
and I'm not fully done with my research here, but I can tell you this: that there have been 127 quarterbacks drafted from Geno Smith's rookie year to last year,
which is what year?
2013. So from 2013 to 2023, 127 rookie quarterbacks have been drafted. 40.9% aren't even in the league anymore.
See, that's what we get.
52 quarterbacks aren't even in the league anymore.
So are you ruining them? Like Drake May is going to start with this horrific offensive line.
Yeah.
What? I mean, are you kidding me? You're going to ruin them.
Listen, it doesn't even get much better from there. Like, just to find a starter, 22% of that 127 are just starters. And that's baseline starting, okay? And then you can, even if you're below average starter like Deshaun Watson right now, it's like that all the way up to your Super Bowl quarterbacks that you can win, that they could take you to the Super Bowl at any point in time. Until Patrick Mahomes is like retired. That's the guy that you got to beat, but that's insane. Like, quarterbacks just wash out at a really high rate, or they become backups, or they become a quarterback that a team clings to for too long, and they become like a starter to backup, like a Marcus or a Jameis. Like, it's just the quarter. This is why I'm a big proponent of just draft a quarterback every year, because you don't know what round your quarterback's going to come from. You don't know what round your quarterback's going to hit. You might as well just draft a quarterback until you find the guy. You just can't quit. You just can't give up on it right now for whatever reason.
I don't know if I go that far on drafting a quarterback every year.
I wouldn't say every first round, but like if you want to get one in the fifth or sixth or something like that.
I don't know if I go that far, but I am on to the same line. And this is when I learned this, what I was watching, because I thought it was like, man, that's interesting. Why would they do that? RG3 and Kirk Cousins. That was the first time I said, man, they took two quarterbacks in the top 5 rounds.
Trey Lance and Brock Purdy.
Right, okay. And I go, man, that makes no sense. And then they were nothing alike in their skill sets.
Yep.
One was a pocket passer, and one was kind of, I can be a pocket passer, but I also can run RPOs, and we can run the ball. We can do all these different things. And I go, man, that's really weird. And everybody was, banging a head on the, on the wall saying this is idiotic. At the same time, I was looking at it like, I wonder what they thought and why they did that. Because there's a rhyme and reason. These guys are studying players all over the country and studying quarterbacks. And it ended up working out that Kirk Cousins, as we saw, became the better quarterback because he was actually a quarterback.
Like Brock Purdy and Trey Lance as well.
Trey Lance, right.
Drake May and Joe Milton.
No, the one I'm thinking of, and that could end up being Drake May and Joe Milton this year, was drafted. That's what they're saying. Drake May and Joe Milton both drafted this year. The rotating one was the Texans a few seasons ago, where they were rotating Davis Mills and someone else. They think it was Keenum. It may have been Glennon at that time. But Davis Mills was getting rotated in and out in a 2-quarterback set. But other than that, we'll continue our talk about the quarterback, specifically about Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans, and how is the staff handling him, and what do we think about their process? I'm Zach. He's Blaine. Is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone. Blaine and Zach, 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045 if you want to talk about Tennessee Titans and Will Levis, and where you may think that they are handling or mishandling your quarterback. And then we'll also talk about kind of the similarities between the Titans and the Preds. And, of course, there's the F&M Bank chat on Zone TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. And, Blaine, there was a clip. Now, I'm going to set this up two different ways. So there was a clip that really rubbed me the wrong way. Now, I did not watch the presser. I'm going off A to Z Sports tweet last night on Football and Other Efforts, which you can also listen on 104.5 The Zone. And this is what A to Z Sports Nashville said on Twitter. Will Levis says Titans coaches have shown him numerous examples of interceptions and mistakes that have made him feel better about himself. Jordan Love this weekend, Tom Brady in an AFC championship game, and rookie Joe Burrow all cited. And a lot of the replies, are like, is this satire? Is this like a gold star situation where they're just giving him a gold star and saying, there you go, champ, whatever. And I really just was displeased with this because I'm like, this says a lot about how they feel they have to communicate with their quarterback. Now, I had Reed pull up the clip today when I got into the office so I could listen to it. It doesn't sound as bad or as concerning as what A to Z made it sound in their tweet. So Reed's going to play the clip for us right now. This is Will Levis talking about the interceptions and some film and stuff that he's looked at.
There's a couple examples that coaches told me that have made me feel a little bit better about myself. I think he said Tom Brady in the AFC Championship threw an identical pick to what I did to Von Miller to a dropping defensive end. Like, those things happen. Like, things where the vision's not there, someone's in front of you, you don't really see what's going on. And then again, he sent me a clip last night of Burrow trying to throw it away like this on the sideline and it getting picked in his rookie year or something. And he's like, yeah, he turned out to be pretty good. So that was just funny to see those things and knowing it happens to everybody.
So I get the idea is like trying to get Will Levis out of his own head, but that was what the bye week's supposed to be for. Like, right? I mean, like, isn't he supposed to be out of his own head by now? This to me is a little bit red flag. Maybe it's an orange flag if you want to not go full red flag. But this is like they're going out of their way to send him clips to make him feel better about the turnovers he's committed. So that, to me, says a lot about the mental headspace and what they feel the coaching staff needs to do to handle Will Levis going forward with, I guess you would say, with kid gloves, I guess you could say. Is that an unfair characterization? Am I being a little too harsh?
I don't know if it's unfair. I think what I would say is, as you've been listening to me the whole time about how the mental headspace of a quarterback and the kicker are way different than every other position. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, so just think about if you're raising your kid and they keep doing the same thing over and over. And I know we're talking about a kid compared to a quarterback, but I'm just giving an example. You're not just going to try to beat them down. You're going to try to show support. Because guess what? In the NFL, you only have one other option. That's Mason Rudolph. So at the same time you can support somebody, that doesn't mean you still say, hey, but we can't do that again. And if that happens again, we got to pull you. So I don't see that as a big deal. What he's really trying to convey to him, I think, is the other way around, in which you're not seeing, is that we see greatness in you. You now have to show us, because they saw greatness and patience in these players, and they eventually showed them. But guess what? Only time's a ticking, and only so long can we wait. So it's also that implied message, too, even though it's saying, hey, man, we got your back, to a certain extent. So, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's just interesting. He might have done that on the bye week. It just may have came out this week because somebody asked him. Yeah, I don't know if that was true or not, but I don't have any problem with the. So
you don't find it a little concerning that it seems that they have to take this? I mean, I just no, because I don't have another word for it other than kid gloves.
I know, but there's another side of it, because see, now you have social media. Everybody sees it. Yeah. He can't help but see it. Even if he shut down his account, he's still going to see it. Like, so you want to make sure, hey, man, regardless of what all this nonsense is, we still have your back. Now, let's just stay focused, stay driven, stay on track, and we'll be okay. I got your back. So I don't see anything wrong with it.
Gotcha.
It's like you are the manager of your employee. Okay, you want me to use you as an example? Okay, when we mess up coming out or when we leave, one of the coaches came in like, hey, man, you do that one more time, I'm going to have to put somebody else in your spot. Or if he comes and say, hey, man, you're doing a good job. Just slow down. Take your time. Things happen. I'll show you when somebody else did the same thing and they became and built their own business and sold it for $50 million, right? So that, to me, is the equation of the same as an athlete. Now, at some point, it's the road where, if not, I'm going to have to bring somebody else in here, So I think people get out of character thinking that sports is somewhat different because there's a human element. There's no bot out here, telling us that what you're supposed to do, and they're not robots. So they have feelings, which is all natural, and you want it to be that way. But we're going to make sure you stay in the right headspace. I was a little more surprised in that Levis himself said that he wasn't talking to a mental, psychologist. Because to me, the quarterback always supposed to be having these kind of dialogues to make sure that he's in the right headspace all the time. To me, to be honest, with the way the social media, and he grew up in the social media era, and how much that can influence and get in, people's head. I mean, to be honest, it's a different game. Because everybody, just think, people get upset because somebody didn't like or they disliked one of their tweets. I mean, X. I mean, so we got to think about where we're going here and what all happens, and that you are also always going to be watched. I think that's another element that should have been talked about, that I don't think he realizes how much he's always going to be on camera regardless. I mean, hey, man, this is different than in college. So, he's learning on the fly. I think he's a quick learner, but we shall see. So this game is going to be, and I think he's going to start because based off what I saw, not unless he swelled up or something from the throwing and everything from the other day, I didn't look like anything was wrong with his shoulder to me, to be honest. Maybe like after he released it, he may have pulled it, but that's being overcritical. He looked like he was fine throwing the ball. That's all I saw.
What have you thought about how they've handled his assimilation into this offense? So him coming into this offense, adapting their offense to Will Levis. I know a lot of people, the big talk is all these wow throws or that seem to be lacking from last year to this year. And we talked about it earlier in the week about how, outside of the Atlanta game, those wow throws were very few and far between in the rest of the remaining games. And that this year, he's 3 for 11 on deep shots. He's got 3 interceptions on the deep shots already. Like, where are you at on how they've assembled this? Because he even said yesterday, and I should have had Reed pull this clip. He even said that he recognizes that some of those throws he made last year were ill-advised throws. That's not an exact quote, but that's what he meant, is that they were ill-advised throws. And that's something that we've talked about, is like, the throw to Chig, or the throw, this year, the throw to Chig and the throw to Calvin Ridley were ill-advised throws, but they were touchdowns. And he said, I've learned that there are some ill-advised throws that I made last year. And a lot of that was like grip it and rip it. Right. Some of that was in the Atlanta game and all this kind of stuff. Because I remember Bill Callahan and Will Levis sitting down with Albert Breer over the summer talking about those games in Atlanta and talking about some of the throws that maybe he should or shouldn't have made. Right. And because it's not going to work. They're not high percentage throws. They're not going to work every time. His completion percentage has gone up, which is really hard to do. It's gone from I think it was 58 or 59% last year to 68% this year. That's
How
really
surprised are you of that? Because I know you've been hitting
because here's the reason why I'm super surprised, because that kind of jump is very mathematically improbable. Like that is a bigger jump than most second-year quarterbacks do. But he did it, and that's due in part to what he's learned in this offense. So I am not like everybody else who thinks that this offense doesn't work with Will Levis in it. I think this scheme can work with Will Levis in it. They're doing top-down progressions. They're doing they don't do enough play actions. I think they got to do some stuff. But overall, how do you think they've handled the transition with Will Levis from last year's offense to this year's offense?
I would say they assumed that he was already there, and they made him go through his progression reads like he was already a proven quarterback.
Yeah.
Instead of continually making it simple for him, read one guy. Now, not to say that they haven't done that, because he looks like he does that sometimes, even on the pick, right? He threw to the Dolphins guy. It was a one-read deal, boom, get rid of the ball. I think they need to do more of that, even in critical situations, because I still think from your analytics numbers, he's still a beat behind. So with that being said, that's why I wanted him to play 1 or 2 more games, because you'd really see, because sometimes I said it took me 4 games.
Yeah.
I'm not a quarterback, but
Right.
the game slowed down with my eyes. So then I could have got to see if it started slowing down for him. And so now we got to almost start at week 2 in my mind
Yeah.
to go from here, because he missed a game. Maybe not 2, but I got to see him going through his progressions, and maybe they just do one side of field read and pre-snap and say, if not, get rid of it here and let go. If not, throw it away. Start, doing that to a certain extent. I like to see more of that. I'm a big quarterback guy who likes his quarterback to throw on time. If not, know where all his safety valves are. That's the kind of quarterback I want, and take his shots when needed. You got to take shots, because being a former defensive back I know what it does. I creep. I starting at 12, and the next thing you know, I'm at 8 when I'm lining up, because you're not throwing deep. You're not throwing it. You're not challenging us. So you creep, and then you throw it over their head. So, I just think there's a part of the philosophy and the scheme that he should fit regardless. He just has a tool of an arm that can throw it really far. So that doesn't mean that's going to be, it's like hitting home runs. You're not going to do that all the time. So you got to be able to dink and dump throughout your process. If not, you won't be a successful quarterback.
Do you think that it's not the systems? It's not a system or scheme issue.
No.
It's really more of a responsibility issue. Like maybe the first week should have been a pretty simple, get your feet wet kind of deal, right? Like easy reads, easy outs, easy throws, few deep shots to get you going. And then once you see that you can handle that, then they add something else to your plate. And then you handle that combo. Then you add something else the next week to your plate, like something a little bit different. Do you think?
Well, I was talking about more progression reads, not necessarily a play assumptions, like a lot of plays. It's about, okay, all the mechanism. Okay, you're changing your blocking scheme for blitzes. All right, you're also changing the play. We're checking. Now, that ain't even got to the part where we're reading and when we're throwing the ball. Like, okay, this guy lined it here, and then all of a sudden he moved. They're shifting over here, and then they're rotating. Now I check to another play, and then that play's not going to work. Where do I go with the ball? See, all these things are happening, and to me, just to make it simplistic, and then get him out of the huddle sooner than later.
Yeah.
These are all, instead of waiting till, it gets to 5 seconds and they're lining up. I want to be out there. I want to see what's going on.
Shouldn't you really be out by the time that the head
15 seconds
comes off? You should be heading out
that gives
at
you
that
enough
point.
Time at the worst. Yeah.
I just wonder if this
is all operation.
So I kind of probably butchered the question I was asking. So you talked about, calling blitzes out and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Lloyd Cushenberry could do that, right? Like, isn't that something that maybe you probably should have given Lloyd Cushenberry at the beginning, and then let him take one thing off Will Levis's plate at the beginning? Like, take all this.
He could be. I don't know. I was just assigning, but he could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
I wonder if they tried to put too much on his plate in the first week, and they haven't really tried to take enough responsibility away to trying to get him into a rhythm. Because I think sometimes, take for instance, if I'm watching TV, okay, and then talking on Twitter, and then trying to do something else to do some research, one of those things is going to fall behind.
Yeah, I do that all the time, and I don't accomplish anything.
Yeah, you don't accomplish anything, right?
I got the bits and pieces, but I really
and I got puppies I got to take out, and they do all this stuff. And so I wonder if that's the same situation, is that maybe he's got too much going on at the beginning, and on top of being in a new system, and maybe they should have dialed it back. And I wonder if they are going to dial some certain things back for him to try to get him into a rhythm. It's a lot easier to do something when you're in a rhythm, and I just don't feel like he's ever gotten comfortable, I guess you could say.
That it's really hard not being in the room. But I'm sure if I was guessing, Will Levis thought he could handle it. And they thought he could too. And they probably would ask him, hey, this is not too much, right? And he's like, no, I got it. Seems like he's a really hard worker, studies film, he's ready to rock and roll. But when the pieces move, they're not standing still like they're on the board.
Yeah.
And that's the part, sometimes some coaches think it is like that.
Yeah.
And it's not that simple. We used to, Greg Williams would come in there and he'd put this whole, like I said, every week we do it. I'm like, hey, man. We got a lot of ding dongs on the defense now, man. Everybody, about 5 of us gonna know what you're talking about. The rest of them, they're not gonna know what's going on here.
Yeah,
like you think we can do that? I can, but I don't know if they will.
Yeah.
So, would you rather do something we know and execute it, even though they may know?
Yeah.
So, and that's from a defensive perspective. Offense a little bit different because rhythm and timing and bending spots. There's a lot of, times where you can be wrong just on a hair and it can mess up the rhythm of the offense. It's like 5, offensive linemen working together in unison. And that's how you beat an 8-man front. And they had more people to block than you had to block them.
Yeah.
But you hit it on time, and it was able to creep out, and that's how Derrick Henry ran for a long play, even though they had an 8-man box. So it takes time, and that's the part, the human element. Even though you could be still wrong about Will Levis, you have to give him time to see if he can be right. And that's the part that's hard to do in today's NFL. And man, it's really hard because of the pressure to win, the pressure from fans, the organization, and to show patience, and he could still be wrong. It's still okay. And then where is that line for the patience? No one knows. Only the people who are sitting there who's making those decisions can really tell you. That's why I'm just giving you a guesstimate of where I'm at, probably looking at it from a coach's perspective, not a player's perspective, just kind of what you have to do to really see if he's got the goods to be a consistent player week in and week out. And right now, we just seen him up and down all over the place. But I tell you one thing, as bad as the bad plays, you still see some plays going, ooh, dang, I see why I like him. And it's no different than, Richardson. He throws some
cheeses.
Right.
Cheese throws.
So that's really it. So, man, I'm just hoping that bye got him over the hump, and then he's ready to rock and roll. But, boy, these next 2 weeks, if he does some tomfoolery again, I'm a pretty patient guy at this point in my life, but, man, that would take me like, come on, sit down. Stand right next to me. And that's what happened, man. A couple weeks, man. I'm like, hey, man, you going to get me clipped from my job, man.
Well, when we come back, we'll close out the show talking more about the Tennessee Titans and their similarities to the Nashville Predators over these last few years. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
For many of you who have lived here a long time, you already know Eurofix has been in Middle Tennessee area for your European car repair needs now for 24 years. And we've all gotten to watch them grow. And I don't know about you, but I love watching a hometown business take off. Well, we are now proud to announce the 5th location in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road, right across the street from Dairy Queen. And Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. Pretty cool getting to watch a small town mechanic starting in the barn of a backyard of a single wide trailer and now grow to 5 locations repairing thousands of cars each month. And at Eurofix, you can get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can just visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. But always tell Blaine, said
Blaine and Zach here with you to close out this second hour on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Store, 615-737-1045. And, of course, the Zone TV, F&M Bank Chat on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. And, Blaine, the Predators play tonight. The hockey season is upon us. It's here. It's October. And I was thinking about the Predators' arrival. So 2 years ago, they're in the basement of the NHL pretty much. They were a bad team heading into the trade deadline. Season was over, and they probably should have did a fire sale back then. And instead, they didn't do a big fire sale at the trade deadline. They fired their coach, and Barry Trotz became GM, and Andrew Burnett became the head coach. And then they added a few pieces, but they kind of put together a playoff contending team. Not really Stanley Cup level, but like getting into the playoffs with what they had and what they pieced together. And then this last offseason, they've went full force into the free agency. They signed a bunch of people. They have really high aspirations and hopes coming into this season and all this stuff. And I'm thinking about the Tennessee Titans. And I'm thinking about last year when it all looked lost with Mike Vrabel and this team, and how they should have, traded away some pieces at the trade deadline, specifically Derrick Henry.
Yeah,
and they chose not to.
Mm-hmm, they did.
But then this year, they get the new coach. And instead of working with what they got, they went and became big spenders. So it's like they skipped a year between what the Predators did in the fire sale year, and now 2 years after the fire sale year, were big spenders. And they became big spenders to build around Will Levis. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have built around Will Levis, but now I'm wondering if the way that they were aggressive and spent money was the wise way. Maybe they should have taken that money and spread it out in multiple ways. Like, instead of maybe trading for L'Jarius Sneed, which I'm glad that L'Jarius Sneed is here, and I think getting L'Jarius Sneed is a good move. I'm just providing an alternate theory or hypothetical. Instead of trading away for L'Jarius Sneed, maybe they should have, spent some extra money to get a right tackle. Maybe they should have, shored up their offensive line a little bit more on that right side. Like certain things. And listen, this is all just, I guess you could say armchair GMing. But I just think it's different. The way that the Preds went about it really worked out and benefited them not only for this year, but also for the long term. They're set up really well to stay competing and stuff with a good team. And I'm wondering if maybe that they just kind of skipped a step. It kind of feels like that maybe they just skipped a step because it feels like they maybe overestimated what Will Levis was going to be out of the gate. And that's kind of where I'm going with this. Is like maybe you could have found more about Will Levis and maybe been big spenders, in future years to build around a different quarterback instead of doing it right now.
Hindsight is always 20/20, but
yeah.
I think the only difference I see, and not even about the way they went about it, was I think the Predators actually knew they were rebuilding.
Yeah.
And the Titans never wanted to really say that until this year. Now, with the tactical way they went about it, I think I probably would have approached it somewhat similar. I think they had different options. I don't even think they had Ridley on the radar. They didn't think they could get him. And then that became available. And then I think that's when they redirected. And maybe I think they were, if I was guessing, probably going after some form of a pass rusher. Front side tackle, they could have got a veteran. That's probably the only beef I had. Everything else, I really didn't have an issue with what they did.
And I don't have an issue. I'm just saying that maybe they skipped a step in all this because it's weird, right? Because
what was the other step? Like,
the other step is kind of like maybe building some depth and doing some, maybe not building. It feels like to me, okay, so we kind of talked about this a couple weeks ago, but they say Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker in the offseason say this is going to take 2 or 3 years for us to get this thing going. Mm-hmm. And then their actions say it's not going to take 2 or 3 years. Where we're bringing in L'Jarius Sneed, we're going big on Calvin Ridley, we're bringing in the best center in the free agent class. We're doing this, and this.
But that's how you took it. They told you what they were doing.
Well, they did, but their actions say something different.
No, these actions say we got to be able to sell tickets and we have to be competitive to keep you still edged on to say we believe in this organization, we believe in this team. So when we build the new stadium, you're still not sitting here with a 2-14 team. Instead, you got a middle-of-the-road team, and when we move into the stadium, we'll be popping and hopping, and we'll be a playoff Super Bowl contending team. That's what I viewed it as, not because they made some splashes in the in the free agency. That didn't tell me that, because that was never going to be enough. That was never. They were always going to be in the middle of the road. Now, people believe that. He let them believe what they want to. They say this is a 2 or 3 year process. I mean, they didn't change it. So
do you think their moves still feel like it's a 2 or 3 year process? Or does Will Levis not living up to expectations make it feel like a 2 or 3 year?
It's still early, and that's yet to be determined.
Okay.
Right? See, so we still have some time. I think you got those pieces to make sure when you do, look at your offense, you say he can or cannot be a franchise quarterback. That's what this was about from the offseason moves to me, and with even the hiring of the head coach.
Yeah.
So that has a dynamic relationship with all the quarterbacks that he's worked with along the way, different style quarterbacks too. So I thought that was the right play. I thought getting the pieces around him to actually see, because then there are no excuses. Just imagine if Burks is our number one, where would we be today? We would so we got Boyd cheap. So we got Ridley, who we paid a lot of money for, and we got Pollard, who's a dynamic two-way running back.
Yeah.
I didn't, and now, they had the good Cushenberry. And they went after it in the draft. So I actually liked all their moves because they are building pieces. It's just not going to happen now. That's what people wanted to believe. They never said that, and I never believed that. I never thought that this was a playoff contending team. When I used to say that to people, they would like, what? Like, no, this is probably a borderline playoff team. Now, if they make it in and get chemistry quickly, then all of a sudden all bets are off. But I always thought this was a middle-of-the-road team.
We'll talk more about this tomorrow. 3HL's up next. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone. And in the meantime.
And in between time.
Peace.